Hello, Dr. Veronica. Thanks so much for joining me today. How are you?
I am so good. Thanks for having me.
Yes, I know I get to be on the flip side, you guys. I'll have to link up. Did our episode come out yet or no?
Not yet. So we're in a
Okay.
huge rebrand. It will come out by the end of next month. So,
Okay. Well, if this comes out before then, I will link it up afterwards. But our
yeah.
episode was so great. She was interviewing me, so now it's reversal. And I'm excited to have you on to just really talk about your journey in both like business and health and just the connection, the integration of both, which is so beautiful. First, we'll start off with just, introducing yourself, but really going into your backstory. A couple things that you wrote down that I was like, oh, I would love for you to carry to talk about. And honestly, this will carry a lot of the conversation too, because I'm sure these are really big areas and just experiences that really shaped what you do today. And those are like growing up more so with an eating disorder and then also having two miscarriages in chiropractic school when stress is really high. And I know that probably was a big factor for you of doing what you do now. So share with us a little bit of your backstory.
Yeah. So my name is Dr. Veronica. I am a mom of two. I have a 3-year-old and a 6-month-old. I am married to my high school sweetheart, and I own both Haven Health Chiropractic and VS Kingdom Coaching. So I am a chiropractor, a practicing chiropractor, and a coach. And when it comes to my background, I'm like thinking about all the things. Um, I would say when it came to the eating disorder, I was never technically diagnosed with that. But like looking back, I was like, oh, that's what was happening. And that started in high
Yeah.
school. So, and I guess I should say that started probably before. So, when you grow up in an environment, you don't realize how much it influences you until later on. And so when I was
Totally.
young, yes, when I was young, we grew up fairly well, but then my dad lost his job during the 2008 economy crisis. We had like this crazy like had to move houses and all this stuff. So basically, for a time period, we had home insecurity and we had food insecurity. Obviously, at the time, you didn't necessarily realize that's what was going
No,
on.
yeah, yeah.
I grew up and I was like, oh, like I had a lot, like I wondered why I had like a weird relationship with food. It's because sometimes we didn't always have it, right?
Yeah.
I remember a specific time when I believe I was like 8 or 9, and my mom, as I think we talked about in the last episode, is like my favorite person in the entire world. But I remember she would skip meals sometimes, and I noticed that, and I would tell her like, "Oh, I already ate. Like this is." So we would just kind of like watch out for each other in that front. So that tells you kind of where we started.
Yeah.
So growing up, fast forward, we moved to Iowa because of the house insecurity, which is where my mom's family's from. And it was then kind of stress at home was stressful, but then I went from being homeschooled to the public schooling realm.
Oh my gosh. Big jump.
Yes. Yes, there's like a lot of layers to this. And I found that I didn't have a ton. I would say I had some insecurities, but I didn't have them until I started school. And I was like, oh,
Okay.
like there's a lot of things that I need to like quote unquote catch up on, right? Like if I want to be a cool kid, I gotta like do all these things. So that's kind of when I started thinking about like appearance and all that kind of stuff. And so in and through high school, I did find that I was probably would have been considered anorexic. I didn't like to eat. I was in sports. I was doing all these things, and I would skip lunches, and I wouldn't tell my mom all these things. So I didn't eat a lot. And then fast forward to like undergrad, I flipped, and I went to like binge eating. And so
Okay.
it was like I either wasn't eating or I was eating too much to the point of discomfort, and I was a bit like I would hide my I'm just thinking like the fast food bags that I would pick up, I would like hide
Yeah.
them because I was embarrassed of eating them, and but then I would eat until I was like completely uncomfortable. And then I started pageantry. So I started competing in pageants because I felt like I was not confident. I wanted a confidence boost. I thought I was only going to do it once, but then I did it and I got an itch for it again. So I did it for 4 years. And I will say, you would think that that would make things worse, but it actually made it a little bit better in terms of I realized that if I wanted to have this certain physique, I had to eat more. I had to work out more.
I
So
love
it kind of
that.
gave me some habits that I didn't necessarily have. But then we got to the point of like, okay, now I need to get as skinny as possible, right? So
Mm.
I ended up leaving pageantry because I was able to thankfully recognize, and a couple people have spoken to my life as well, on just kind of the dangers that I was heading towards. Like I actually had signed up to um, have plastic surgery, and at that point, like
Wow. How
I spent
old?
I was 20. I was 20, and
Okay,
I
so you
wanted,
were an adult technically,
yeah,
but
yeah, yep,
wow.
yes. So, and I was like, this is what I want to do. So I actually scheduled it. I sent in the deposit and everything. And then I was like, actually, I don't know if I like want to do, like, I think someone asked me, like, at the time I wasn't planning on having kids, but someone was like, if you had a daughter, would you be okay with her doing this? And I was like, at the time I was like, yeah. And then I kept thinking on that. And I'm like, honestly, probably not. So I canceled that appointment. And in the same day, canceled my preparation for the next pageant that I was preparing for because I was like, well, maybe this isn't, maybe I need to take a step back. Um, so I'm kind of like going through like starting early and back
Yeah.
to closer to now, where I in 2019, no, 2020 is when I started chiropractic school. So pandemic
Okay.
was hitting. We
Oh
were
my
the first,
gosh.
one of the first classes ever to do virtual for more than half of the program. And it was
Wow.
in, it's just like I'm like
Did
realizing as
that
I'm
rob you though? Do you feel like that robbed you of like the full experience?
they tried to say no. Like they were like, you're still getting everything you needed, right? Because we were like,
Gaslighting you. I'm just kidding.
for sure. I mean, yes. I'm gonna say yes. Because we had been on like they were talking about, we didn't know any different, right? Like we were just like, I mean, I
Yeah.
guess we
Yeah.
probably would just done studying. And then when we kind of integrated back online, we are like, we missed a lot, didn't we? They're like, no, no,
Mm.
no. Like so
Yeah.
so yes, it was a very, very interesting experience. But I won't lie, it was probably why I am so I mean, there's always room for growth and improvement, right? But I graduated and hit the ground running because I was like, I took that time to go to seminars and trainings and certifications, and so I wasn't the student that just kind of like sat back and did online. I basically created my own in-person experience, which was
Love
really
that.
nice. Yeah, so I was able to do like hundreds, if not thousands, of extra hours in extra trainings because I was like, if I'm not going to get hands on in school, like I'm going to go and find it somewhere else. And I kind of was able to tailor my experience towards what I wanted, which was
Nice.
even more holistic than what the school was offering. So it ended up working. It was like such a
Love.
blessing. Yes, that worked out that way. But throughout school, I got this itch for children and my poor husband, who we
Perfect
had like
timing.
we got married. We got engaged before chiropractic school, and I had told him like, I don't want you to marry me if you want kids because I might not be the girl for you. And then
Oh
fast
my
forward to
gosh.
chiropractic school, I was like, actually, I think I want a baby, and I kind of want one like today. And he was like, what? So that was like a whole
He's probably
thing.
like, let's go before you change your mind.
Well, no, he was like actually like he was not like
Oh
he
my
kind of we
gosh.
flipped because he was like no, like I was like you said we were gonna travel and we're gonna do all these things, and the reason it flipped though is because I met some women in chiropractic school who were moms, and I was like, wait, you could do both? Like that's crazy. So they started like picking their brains, and I was like, oh, actually, I want a baby and I want one right now. And so it actually took me 6 months to get him like convinced that this is what we needed to do. We got pregnant after I think month two, but then we lost that baby,
Okay.
and that I was about almost 8 weeks along. So it was, I mean,
Okay.
it was a pretty traumatic
Yeah.
miscarriage. And then I was like, you know what, maybe I'm in school. Kind of this all kind of goes with where my coaching went because when I got pregnant, I freaked out. Like I was like, I don't know if I actually
Yeah.
want to do this. Like, I don't know if I can handle still having like being a doctor and having a baby. Well, we lost that baby, and I was like, I knew after grieving that season that nothing else mattered more than that child. So when we got pregnant again, I was like, okay, I know what I need to do. I know like this baby is the most important thing in the season, and everything else is just kind of like complementary.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how my coaching business was birthed. But all that to say, um, yeah, I got through chiropractic school. I had a 2-year-old when I graduated, and then I was 8 weeks pregnant at that time. And we had a miscarriage before that baby as well. The second
Okay.
time around, it was a little bit harder to get pregnant. It took us about 7 months with a miscarriage
Okay.
included in there. Um, that one was an earlier miscarriage, and I always say it wasn't. I mean, there's a big difference between those
Yes.
3 weeks, right? It's like I was 5 weeks along the second time, and so it was still like sad, but it wasn't as I think traumatic as the first one was.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that kind of fast forwards to now, where we're at now, and that
I
was a
love
lot of
that.
words.
No, I
That's
love that. I love
yeah,
that. And I think that goes into in the forum I have you like kind of define wellness and I really love what you put. And she put, and I quote, um, you mentioned it's the pursuit of excellence and constantly choosing your future today. And then that wellness is contagious and creates a rippling effect in your health, home, and business. And so I wanted you to tell me more about that. Like, how have you seen that in your life? And obviously, you went to school, and chiropractic is very health focused and heavy, which is fantastic. So I'm sure that you were learning and all that, but you probably didn't really get to see that play a role until like after you graduated and then started your own thing. So I don't know, dive deeper into that. Like I really love that definition of wellness.
yeah. Thank you. I think I'm a big what I call a word nerd. I love to look things up, and so when you're like, "What is the definition?" I'm like, "Well, first, what is like, what's the actual definition?" And so I probably that's probably where it was inspired from. Is I always like to it's fun to look up like especially words you use all the time. You'll be so surprised that like we use words wrong all the
So true.
time.
So true. Like what actually is wellness? And then it's also it is different for everyone.
Yes, yes, yes. And so I would say I honestly think the full circle moment with that definition happened when I found that a lot of the time, like, people, when I tell people that I had a kid in chiropractic school or that I had, opened my business 3 months after my second kid was born, they like think that's crazy. And it might be, I don't
I'm
know.
with you. I'm with you. I've done all that, like all those things. They're like, how are you alive? And I'm like, I don't know. You just do it.
Yes, and I think it's because in this like well-rounded experience, the more that I find that we live our lives in categories, which is good to a point, but we forget that the skills that we build in one area directly influence the others. And so, it's just crazy how the smallest habit change ripples into everything else that you do. So, I mean, for example, I don't know, I don't know if anyone else can relate to this, but I was the worst at taking supplements. Like I would
Yeah.
buy all of the regimens and then they would sit there and get dust and I would have to, throw them away. Um, and I can't remember the day that I got decided that I was no longer going to do that. Like now it's like I know it's a habit because it's weird for me not to take those things now.
Yeah.
But it's like as you get disciplined or start a habit or however you want to put that, you find that it starts to ripple into everything else. So you can get a little bit more disciplined with, what it is that you're eating and what it is that you're saying and what it is that you're doing in other areas too. So I just think that when you are on a mission of excellence for your entire life, there's no way to improve one area of your life without improving the rest. And kind of vice versa.
Mm,
Like there's no way to kind of fall off track in one area without falling track off of everything else, right? Like it's like
yes.
they kind of like all breed even like build on momentum
Yeah.
together. And so that's kind of what wellness means to me.
I love that. I love that because it really does. And I always say, like, especially when it comes to like work and health, that it's so integrated because at the end of the day, like, and I think we can all relate, like, think when, I don't know, someone had COVID or you had the flu or something, like, I don't know, I can't get anything done when I don't feel well. And like my career then starts to, that ripple effects into my career and how I can show up for patients, for employees, of course, my family, of course, my community. I'm having to cancel things. I can't show up. And so it's just, even right there, it's like that's totally a ripple effect of how it impacts that. And then, of course, on the positive side, when you're feeling so good, you get to show up in a certain way. And I don't know, I just feel like you deserve feeling 100%. And then people around you deserve you at 100%. So I really
Yeah.
love that. Now, you wrote something that was so unique that I haven't heard. I'm like, okay, I gotta ask her that you don't believe in balance. I know that you mentioned being more so intentional and like choosing versus life taking over. Tell us about that. I love that's like me when I say like I don't really believe in like motivation because it's just
Mm,
commitment. At the end of the day, there's motivation will always come and go. And that's what people like, obviously swear by of like staying motivated. And I'm like, no, there's plenty of times where you're not motivated, but you're committed to yourself. So I feel
mm,
like that's kind of a, it's very trendy, but it's so annoying. Oh, unpopular opinion. I know
yes.
those were like all like the rage on like threads and stuff like that. Unpopular opinion. Now it's like overrated. But anyways, I feel like that's like my unpopular opinion. So I feel like yours was like, she doesn't believe in balance. Tell me more.
Yes, yes, I would love to. I love that. I do want to mention though, when you were talking about like not feeling good and how that like trickles into the rest of the, as you and I just think about things from like a mindset and nervous system perspective. Also, is like
Yes.
how also, and when I find myself in seasons of like, okay, well, now I'm physically not feeling great, and then now my business feels like it's falling apart. Then your mind takes over, and then it's like
Mhm.
my relationship. So I was just thinking about how if someone's listening to this and it's like, man, I feel like my entire life is a mess. And people come to me all the time like, I need to fix everything. And it's like, you just told me, and even in your story, you told me that it started with your physical health, and that
Yeah.
cascaded into all of these other things, right? For someone else, it could be even deeper than that. Um, and I wanted to highlight this because it's like it's so encouraging to know that even though it feels like everything's falling apart, it really only takes one shift
Totally.
to get back on track, right?
Yeah.
So
Totally.
I just wanted to kind of put that in there
Love
because I was
that. I love that.
like, oh. But when it comes to balance, yeah. So I struggle with this unpopular opinion because I know my people want it so bad. Like they are
Yeah.
like, I could say it different ways, and they're like, no, I want balance. Like I want to feel balanced. And
Everyone's 2025 word of the year that's balance. They're like, shut up right now.
like I'm not listening, blah, blah, blah. And it's because if you like were to, I get visual with it, and I think about like a balancing scale, right? So you've got
Yeah.
like two things on one side. If you spend your entire life trying to put just enough on both of these balancing things, you're gonna drive yourself crazy. So I'm thinking in my own life, it'd be like trying to say this is my business in one hand and this is motherhood in another hand. There's gonna be seasons where I am way more on as a mom. And then there's going to be seasons that I'm way more on as a business owner. And so if I feel the weight, like even good visual of it,
Yeah.
if I feel the weight or lack thereof in one area, I'm going to be spinning my wheels thinking, well, if I'm showing up more as a mom in this area, then I must be failing in my business. And that's not necessarily the case, right? Like if you have the
Right.
systems and the procedures and the delegation in place, your business can thrive while you step away to take care of your kids, right? And vice versa, right? Like if I have proper, if I have family members and people I know and trust helping me with my kiddos, I can spend another, couple extra hours at work and clean up those systems and procedures, right? And so I think trying to strive for balance is kind of like a shooting yourself in the foot, really, because it's like you're always going to feel like you're failing if you look at it from that perspective versus
Yeah.
fulfillment and commitment, kind of like the commitment we're talking about.
Yeah.
If I decide ahead of time how I want to show up in a season of business and not let business like kind of sweep me away, and same thing with motherhood, I know that I am showing up the way that I want to, and therefore I'm winning. Right.
Love
Even
that.
if I'm spending more quarter like it's more like quality over quantity, right? Like I might be
Yeah.
spending more time somewhere, but that's what I committed to. That's what I wanted to show up in this season. And so I think it's always just about like intentionality and making sure that you're showing up how you have decided to show up instead of showing up and being like, oh man, like what, not even like having a plan or
Yeah.
knowing exactly what you want to, who you want to be in this season. So I hope
Yeah.
that makes sense. But that's kind of how I
Yeah.
see things.
Yeah. So it's kind of like you're teeter-tottering a little bit like every day. And technically, yeah, it's not well, to me, I guess like even like not equal, but even like this to me is still balanced. But honestly, if you look at my hands, if you're watching this, it's like, no, you're not balanced. This is like technically considered balanced. So
Yeah.
I guess my definition of balance is then different because to me, this still, I would still view this as being balanced because I am serving both areas. And I guess
Mm.
imbalanced is exactly like something completely failing or not doing well, but something else is doing really well. So I feel like, yeah, there's a very gray area that happens in between those things that I would still consider technically balance,
Yeah.
even though it's not very equal. Because yeah, I think in health too, I look at health in seasons, where seasons where you may have to be more intentional, it's more of a healing season, and then other seasons where you can be more laid back and there's nothing that's, red alarms blaring at you. And yeah, same with motherhood. I don't know. Maybe I'm just a little bit more of a unicorn. And maybe because I've always had that perspective of balance and where it's not completely equal, there's always times where it's like this. And
Mhm.
that's how I always viewed balance. So maybe that's also why I felt like I never have felt guilty. I can't relate to a lot of women that feel that way of feeling guilty of like, okay, I'm doing great in business, but I'm not showing up for my kids, or I'm just too involved in kids and I'm not showing up for my career. I don't know. I feel like I've always shown up for both really well. And maybe it's just because I have a balanced definition of balance.
Yeah, yeah, I would absolutely agree. I'm like, it's all in the mindset because I have women that I work with and it's like, listen, I'm crushing it in business, but like I haven't done laundry in 4 weeks. And it's like that's what they hyper focus on. And it's like,
Mm,
well, yeah, like I think when
yeah,
people see me and they see like all the, I'm running two businesses, I have two kids, like they're like, okay, but like how did you get laundry done today? And I'm like, I didn't. Right? Like I'm gonna get to that later, right? So it's I
I
think it's
did, but the secret is house manager.
there you go.
The secret
Delegation
is
too.
delegation and getting help where
That's
you
true
need
too.
it.
Yes.
And I've done plenty of years where I did not have that. So just FYI, and I still got it done. But when you get to a certain point, delegation is like your absolute best friend, just to be
Yeah,
able to really have it all. I feel like when you get to a certain point, that is like the secret of having it all, is like having help in whatever area you need. It doesn't even have to be in your home. It could be in your
I
business, it
absolutely.
could be an assistant, it could be a nanny if you have kids, whatever. Like help is so needed. Especially once you get to a certain spot. So I love that. And then I also want to geek out a little bit about your Aura Ring because I love geeking out
Yeah.
about the Aura Ring. And I know you said it was one of your favorite tools, and I 100% agree. I mean, my tonal is probably up there, which is the coolest strength training a gadget that you have on your wall and all that stuff. Anyways, it like
Cool.
replaces most gyms. It's my favorite. But Aura Ring is like probably equal or top. Like I'm obsessed with it. It is literally the first app I open up in the morning. Like I'm so excited to see how did I sleep, and then I let that like literally determine my day. Like am I going hard in the gym? Am I relaxing today? Okay, am I pivoting? Do I need to cancel plans today? Like it literally tells me what I need to know. So tell me like your experience, like love, hates, everything. I can geek
Yeah.
about this for hours.
Yes, I love it. Well, I'm really excited that you brought it up because as a chiropractor in my office, I basically have a technology that is very similar to the Oura Ring. Obviously, it's
Ooh.
not like a day-to-day update, but it's, I mean, we look at things from a neurological perspective, so I track things from a neurological perspective. And so the Oura Ring is a really cool way to just kind of like support you day to day. And then if you come
Yeah.
into my office, it's like, okay, let's see how the big picture of everything that's going on. So I was when I found out about the Aura Ring, I was like, first of all, like I love all of that because I track HRV in my office. Like I track all those things. And so when I got it, I wasn't sure. I had an Apple Watch before and I was like, I didn't love it. Like there were just so many
Okay.
things I didn't love about it. But when I got the Aura Ring, I was like, tell me more about myself, right? Like I need to know.
Yes.
There's so many times that I'll get like a notification that's like you are feeling stressed, and I'm like, am I? Like I'm so glad you let me know because I didn't even realize that at the time. And I just think it's such a great way to check in with yourself in a deeper way. It's like the Aura Ring
Yeah.
doesn't lie, right? Like you can
Yeah.
lie to yourself sometimes, but the Aura Ring is like, listen, your heart rate's elevated, or like how it can predict if you're gonna get sick. Are you kidding?
Love.
What?
Obsessed.
That's
Obsessed.
amazing.
Even before you have symptoms, I'm so obsessed. And that's like, okay, warning, pump up the supplements, slow it down, get good, go to bed
Exactly.
early. Like I'm
Exactly. I'm
so
like, I'm
obsessed.
gonna get adjusted twice today because right, like my Ring basically told me
Exactly.
to. So yes, I just think it's such a good. Speaking of delegation, I'm like, I think it's like a personal little assistant that's like, hey, have you checked in with
So
yourself
true.
today? And you said love hates. I'm like, I can't even think of something that I hate except for maybe that I wish it never needed to charge, but like that's under right. Like, 'cause I hate
I
taking
would
it off. but
I yes, but that does charge so quick too.
it does. It does.
But I would say my only hate is activity. I do feel like it definitely I know it definitely overcounts steps. And I would say the
Oh,
Apple Watch is probably the best, most accurate. And I've gone down like Reddit threads and stuff like that. But I've even like on my walking treadmill, like did them both. I did like a little whatever. And I think the Apple Watch is definitely way more important with steps. And then Aura Ring is usually either double the amount or a little bit less than double of steps because
really?
I think it's just too sensitive when it comes to activity, which makes
That's crazy.
sense. Just because it's on your, I don't know, it's on your finger. I don't know. I just think that that's, and a lot of other people think that. So I would say that's my only hate. So that's, and I wouldn't say it's a hate. I just don't utilize that part of it.
Mm,
And so I just, you know, if I'm curious about my steps, I'll just look on my watch. And then even on walking
got
on a
it.
treadmill, I literally take my watch off and put it in my legging. And that's how
Oh,
it tests steps because I'm usually at my like working desk. So obviously I'm walking, but I'm not like walking. So that's how I track
right.
it. But
So
yeah,
interesting. I didn't
I
know
love
that.
it. Oh my gosh, it's just the best. And also I think too for people who are they are so used to being stressed. Like you said, when it pops up and it's like, oh, I'm stressed, I think you can like finally know, like, okay, my body's saying I'm stressed. Let me pause. What am I feeling? Because a lot of the times I think people just push through because they're normal. And so if you ask them, like in a questionnaire or whatever, of like, were you stressed out yesterday? They would probably say, no, I was
Hmm.
fine.
Yeah,
And I think that's a really great enlightening thing about the Aura Ring, is just that, as well as, you know, oh, I went to bed this time, I woke up this time.
I love, yeah.
Why am I still tired? But the Aura Ring goes deeper of like, yeah, maybe your quantity was good. Look at your quality. It sucks. You know, you get enough deep sleep or REM sleep. And I just feel like it can piece together those puzzle pieces that like we just don't know, honestly,
Hmm.
without it, you know?
Yeah, definitely fills in
Definitely.
the gaps. It's so interesting about activity because I always thought it under tracked because I don't, I mean, when I go out to like to the gym, it doesn't track my entire workout, but I've never checked the steps. So that's really
Oh,
interesting because it'll be like the other day I did something and it was like, you worked out for 15 minutes and I was at the gym for 50. And I was like, so it just, yeah. So I would say
yeah.
maybe that part isn't as I
Yeah.
have noticed that, but I don't necessarily track that as much. It's
Yeah.
like you said, the sleep and stuff is where it's at, where it's like, well, and
Yeah.
I still have a 6 month old keeping me up sometimes. So I like
Oh
it blows
gosh.
my mind when like we get up together and I swear I don't even get out of bed, right? Like he is like right next to me. I don't know. There's I guess opinions on that, but he is right next to me,
Love
and I
that.
just kind of roll over and feed him, and then I'm like, but it caught like it saw that I was awake and for how long and exactly like when I it's
Yes.
just crazy. I love it.
Yes. Yes. I know. I know. So walk us through your wellness routine. Like, what are you doing in the morning, during the day, in the evening? Like, what are your non-negotiables that are, especially in a busy season? You know, you have
Yes.
two businesses and then you have young babies, so not even old babies, you have young babies. So what do you do to keep yourself feeling good?
Yes. That's I feel like in busier seasons I have more non-negotiables than not busier seasons.
Love that.
So this season I have a lot of non-negotiables, and I would say in the morning I start with, and this I got this from my own coach, but what's called a brain prime. So you listen to like a thought that you want to have, and that like the way you want to show up, and you listen to that every single morning, just to kind of hear your own beliefs and thoughts and goals in your own voice for the first time. And then I try to listen to at least a couple chapters of the Bible. I listen to it on my app while I'm just kind of getting ready. Um, and then anything else in between that is just kind of up in the air. I have found that taking care of my home more often, like sometimes I feel like my
Mm,
home, you'll hear a lot. Like that's the thing that I'm still it like looks fine, but I'm like, I know I want to get into like a little bit better, and
yeah.
I delegate out everything else so far that I'm like, okay, I am showing up at my home in this way for this time. So 30 minutes of some sort of care for my home a day is what my new
Love.
non-negotiable is, and that has just been it just like brings me joy to know that like parts of
The
my
home
home
is
are getting eaten.
everything.
But yes,
Oh my
exactly,
gosh, the
yes,
home is everything. That is why we
yes,
have a house manager and had to like make that decision. Because every time me and my husband found ourselves just kind of like getting at each other, it's literally always rooted in the house. And I know we're anal and people will be walking in and be like, your house is literally not dirty. Well, it is to us because we're just, you
right.
know,
You
low
just
OCD about
know.
it. But that. game change. My husband will be really dramatic and say like it changed our marriage. I don't think it changed our marriage, but it definitely helped us like not like when we're not working, when we're not doing, now we just can like enjoy it and don't have to worry about like, oh, work
Yes.
is done, kids are taken care of, now we got to clean. It's just like one less
Yes.
thing where we can have like more peace, but house is everything.
It really is. Yes, it really is. And I found that the yeah, exactly what you said. Like when my house is going to crap, usually everything else is. So I have
Yes.
been making it a point of like 30 minutes a day. And me and my husband have like our own routine. There's 30
I
minutes
love that.
and then yeah, and then we're like able to enjoy. And I cannot tell if you are behind in housework, you will be so surprised what you can get done in 30 minutes. Like I don't know why I feel like I needed like a whole day to like deep clean everything. 30 minutes a day.
You
And
know,
so that's kind of my new routine. I know we're like pivoting on, but seriously, that has been probably the best wellness routine I can create is taking care
100%.
of
Better mental
my
health,
house.
everything,
Yes,
everything.
yes, yes. Just my environment is reflecting what I
Yes.
want to be. So yeah, and then at night, so right after this, I have a workout that I'll go to at 2 o'clock. And it's really funny because literally everything that I do is like stacked up with each other because in my gym you wear a heart rate monitor and you like
Love.
test your like you work out based on like the zone that you're in. So that's the kind of gym I go to and I love it. It's a virtual gym. They have classes every hour, which is really awesome. So it really fits my schedule. I had to find like a unicorn, but I did in the area, which
Love
was
that.
great. And then yeah, I would say supplements and water and just like unwinding at night and we kind of do it all again. I do get adjusted once a week at least, if not twice a week, because especially when we're in busy seasons, I just feel like the body keeps a score, the body holds on to tension. You need to release that as fast as you
Yeah.
can. So yeah,
I
I would say
love
those
that.
things.
Amazing. And one last one is I know that you talked about, being in a mastermind and a mentorship. And I love that you kind of added that as like a wellness tool that I don't think most people would have, thought to add that into, like,
Mhm.
Oregon got it. But I would love to hear more about like how you feel like that's helping with your wellness and business too.
Yes.
Well, business is
Yes.
a little obvious, but wellness is a little bit more unique. Like, okay.
Yes, yes, that's such a good point. So, m- having someone to be like a safe sounding board for you has been a game changer in the way that I show up, especially in business. But as I would say, business, then motherhood, and even my marriage has improved since working with this coach. And also making sure that you're working with the right coach, right? So like trauma
Yeah.
informed is really important, and someone who's like an actual coach. Like there's coaching and then there's consulting, but like an actual coach that reflects
Yeah.
back things to you. And so just kind of being able to, I truly believe that your beliefs are what create your habits, not the other way around. And even science would back that up. Like you do what you believe that you are. And so kind of uncovering some of those beliefs and almost like releasing that weight that you might be holding that you don't even realize has just like freed me up in so many different areas of life. So I mean, this is the kind of work that I do for other people. So I want to make sure I'm getting it done for myself too.
Yeah.
And just making sure that I have a safe space to like really just like purge all of the things that are holding me back and weighing me down, so that I can show up in the different areas that I want to fully.
I love that. I love that. And share with us a favorite book or podcast right now that you love.
Yeah, right now I'm listening to the Audible Anxious for Nothing by Max Lucado. And
So good.
so
So
such a good
good.
book. It is changing my whole entire life. It's
Yes,
so good. So
100%. If you have anxiety, please read it. I know it's a little bit more Christian based, so I don't know if that's, listener, if that's your jam or not, but if it is, it's one of my favorites
oh
for
my
sure.
gosh, it's so good. I'm almost done with it and I'm like, man, this is what I needed in this season.
Yes,
So
I felt the same. I love
so
that.
yeah.
Amazing. And then share with us like where people can find you and some of your goodies and offerings.
Yeah, that sounds good. So you can find me on Instagram at drveronicashiltz.com. So just Dr. Veronica I. Schiltz. Sorry, not .com, just Dr. Veronica I. Schiltz. And then on the website, it's VS Kingdom Coaching. I am getting ready to do a giant interactive, high energy, high level masterclass coming up in April. So stay tuned for that. That will be $27. And then I have opened up my membership to allow for just flexible commitment. So we have 3 different tiers starting at $197 a month, all the way up to, the full shebang 12-month retreat option. And so if you want to learn more about that, you can find that information on my website.
Perfect. I'll put all those links in the show notes. Thank you so much for
Yay.
coming on today. And thank you for letting me geek out in the Oura ring with you.
Yeah,
It's been so fun again to reconnect.
of course. Thanks for having me.